I saw my first skull, I think I was about the age of 10 years old, when walking along a riverbed in Africa. Presumably an unfortunate fisherman got caught by a crocodile, and what was on the shore was a human skull. And as a 10-year-old, you know, you don't just get nightmares all of a sudden by seeing a human skull, but this does very much imprint on a human consciousness and on a child the actual reality of death. Many years later, I was at a Buddhist monastery and I was sort of exploring just the local area, looking at like where the monks sort of sleep and whatnot. And I saw that one of the monks kept outside of his house, his little hut, he kept a kangaroo skull. And this was very surprising to me. I've never seen this been associated with Buddhism. But at the same time, I immediately understood why this monk was keeping a skull. On a sort of mystical level, I understood what is the spiritual benefit of having an object like this nearby you. Even when you are meditating, it can be a useful object to see from time to time. And really this sparked within me the idea that keeping a skull can be just a legitimate practical use to face the issue of death. Because as human beings, we all like to avoid the topic of death. It's slowly creeping up on us, but it always seems far enough away that we just don't need to worry about it. So the picture of the thumbnail is a kangaroo skull, which I found myself while just walking in nature. Once I was hiking around and there was actually a lot of kangaroo skulls, skeletons in general, but I decided on this one. Now, why is it useful to keep an object like this? So there can be multiple dimensions to it, but ultimately I would recommend that it is allowing and accepting the reality of death and that we ourselves will die. So I suggest that this is not a topic to be obsessed over. So if you're practically keeping a skull at your home, for instance, I wouldn't say put it at the front door or put it on a pedestal or put it, you know, in the center of your living room, because we don't want to obsess about death. It's an aspect of life, but ultimately there are two things we want to know or realize by focusing on death. The first is that feeling and noticing death actually amplifies the feeling of feeling alive. That is very true for me. Whenever I notice that death is an actual thing that is going to happen to me, what it does at a bodily level is it energizes me to feel alive and to just do what I want to do in this lifetime. And this can definitely help if you're staring at a skull, if you sort of see it once a week or so, or even once a day, you just walk past it. At a bodily level, the body realizes, I also am mortal, so let's go out and live. As a little bit of a sidetrack, another exercise that I used to do similar to this, similar to the topic of death, was I would go swimming at night in Perth, Australia, and there are sharks around. Now, I don't recommend anyone do this because I guess it's not 100% safe, but for me, I thought the chances were okay. You know, practically speaking, there's not a big chance of a shark attack happening, but I actually have a very visceral fear of sharks, and entering inky black water at night really sparked a lot of fear in me. And as I was swimming in this black inky ocean, if there was a wave splashing near me, that could sometimes cause a bit of a panic attack. And what I would do is, as this fear was coming up in me, this fear of death, a visceral fear of a shark killing me, is I would think of the Hindu goddess Kali. Kali, you know, I recommend if you're interested in her to do your own meditations, but she is the goddess that you go to when you are ready to die, when you're ready to metaphorically put your head on the altar for her to chop it off. But this again, this whole experience makes us value this life that we are in right now. It makes us feel really alive, and also it brings up aspects of non-duality and you can say enlightenment now. So this is the second big benefit I would suggest of keeping a skull, is we see that death happens, but we start to disassociate from our attachment to this particular body and this particular existence. Ultimately, when people start having deep enlightenment experiences, a common theme that you almost always hear is that people realize that they are not this body and they are not this mind. And when you're entering deep states of enlightenment, what you can notice is that your consciousness is literally the same consciousness as that of other human being, and the nature of nature, the substrate of the force that animates all of living creatures, that substrate, that force is the same. That energy that animates you is the same energy that animates me. And this is sort of what enlightenment is. It's the dissolving away, the bubbling away of this self, the attachment to this body, this mind, and we become something much bigger. So by seeing a skull, at the same time it makes us feel alive in this body. It gives meaning and importance to this incarnation. But at the same time we see that it's only temporary. But if we start to really approach this topic of death with a sharp focus and perhaps with psychedelic exploration, we can totally see, genuinely see, that our true existence is much greater than one physical body. It goes to all consciousness, it goes to all energy, and our ultimate essence is a unity with the entire universe. And that is a really beautiful place, that this very simple topic of keeping a skull in your home, that can be very useful in this end.